Now, Absa Bank Kenya has announced a commitment to plant 10 million trees across Kenya by 2025. The move is in line with the bank's renewed sustainability agenda. Now, Absa plans to be carbon neutral by the end of 2040. It is aligning its business and operations with the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Paris Climate Agreement and Global Impact. Last month, it was recognized as the first bank in Kenya to join the Kenya Green Building Society as a champion for initiatives that promote the green economy. Absa, in the meantime, has also announced a commitment to equip 1 million youth with the requisite employment and entrepreneurial skills under its Ready to Work program by 2023. Well, let's get more insight on Absa's sustainability commitments from Moses Muthui. He is the country's strategy director for Absa Bank Kenya. Great to have you on the show with us, Mr. Muthui. Now, of course, COVID-19 has certainly brought home the importance of environmental, social, and of course, governance issues. How exactly does your new sustainability agenda address the new normal that this pandemic has presented?
Yeah, thank you, Chef, for having me on the show. Really great to talk to you. Look, I think more broadly, sustainability has become a business imperative. And what I mean when I say that is it's no longer about business success. Businesses have to think about social progress. And for us, the overarching goal is exactly that. As we think about creating shareholder value, we must also be very cognizant of the challenges that we face as a society. As you say, COVID-19 has been one of its kind and obviously devastated nations and countries across the globe. We've never faced a pandemic that has created both a challenge to protect lives as well as to protect livelihoods. You remember in the global financial crisis, banks were part of creating the problem that led to the need to protect livelihoods. This time with COVID, there's a need to protect lives as much as to protect livelihoods. And so we've got to think about our sustainability program within that context. Obviously, the gains that had been made, whether it's on the social side, on the economic side, on the environmental side, have really been challenged and strained. And these have been exposed with COVID, where there's a much more concerted need that is needed for corporate organizations to step up. So today we announced our sustainability commitment report. And in a sense, what this does to us is it allows us to do well as do good. As we create shared value, we must think about broader stakeholders. And we've aligned our strategy to 4 key sustainable development goals. That is quality education, reducing inequality, responsible production and consumption, as well as economic growth. And so we are committing ourselves to think about social progress as much as we're thinking about business success. And that's what we announced today, and some of the statistics which you quoted around, training 1 million young people, planting 10 million trees, ensuring that all our suppliers have signed up to the UN Global Compact and they're practicing businesses responsibly. And these are just some snippets of what we're committing to do in the coming future.
Now, of course, increasingly, globally, we're talking about the growing need for sustainability, especially in the formal economy, and that has presented opportunities. So give me a sense of how this new strategy will leverage those opportunities which have been presented, and how will we see it reflect in Absa's operations going forward?
Yeah, I think the first thing really to mention is the fact that, driving sustainable business practices have been part of our DNA for over 100 years we've been in this country. And regionally as a group, playing a shaping role in society is a strategic imperative. So we're not starting today. But I think what you can expect to see going forward is really 3 things. One is at the core of our business, not just us as Absa, but financial institutions, we provide finance to enable economic growth and we underwrite commerce. That's such a privileged position to be in, because if we apply finance in a way that promotes social good, then inherently our business is creating shared value. But also applying finance could create social challenges. So at the core of our business, whether it's supporting small businesses, and we've seen the next phase of economic transformation is from small businesses. We've extended 60 billion of payment holidays to small businesses here in Kenya at the expense of shareholder value. So we are kind of shifting the power of the customer, the power of our balance sheet towards the customer, as much as we care about returns. So expect us to continue expanding and extending our capital and our balance sheet to support economic growth sectors of this country. That's one. Secondly, we obviously consume natural resources as a company, and therefore we have to be mindful to reduce our ecological impact. So expect us to continue, applying principles in our day-to-day operations that reduce the ecological impact we leave on the planet. To give you an example, 60% of the water we consume within our operations is eco-friendly, and we want to take that closer to 100%. And I think lastly is the case of social investments. And as much as we talk about shared value where we create value with our stakeholders, there's still a case for direct corporate sustainability investments. And especially with COVID, where we've extended 50 million shillings to support the health system. We've trained about 150,000 young people. So we'll continue to still make social investments and societal investments as we also pursue shared value, which is more profiting with people, not profiteering with people, making sure that we create shareholder value, but not at the expense of people. So expect at the core of our business, we continue to drive shareholder value and shared value. But alongside our business, expect us to continue being very much involved in community investments.
Well, let's delve a bit more into that. You've committed to the UN Principles for Responsible Banking, and that points to the importance of finance actually fueling a healthy planet, green jobs, and of course the energy transition. So how much money will we see Absa churning into that commitment?
So I think it's going to be an evolution, and it's going to be a journey. And it's going to be a journey and an evolution based on two things. One is the space we have in our balance sheet to extend capital to new sectors, clean energy, existing sectors, as we transition the globe towards being attuned to be responsive to climate change. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is really the understanding that behind any sustainable development goals or behind any sustainability agenda, there's finance permeating through the sustainability agenda. So people often say, finance is the oxygen to commerce. We actually believe finance is the oxygen to sustainability. So we are in this privileged position to make sure that as we allocate capital within our portfolio and diversify our portfolio, we're very deliberate on where we are placing our money and who we are supporting. But it's easier said than done because shareholders at the end of the year expect returns. And more often than not, the sectors that are either eco-friendly or support clean energy are not necessarily the ones that create shareholder value. So that tension is always going to be there. But expect for us to evolve this agenda where we allocate our capital, move our balance sheet towards new eco-friendly initiatives or supporting suppliers and supporting businesses and supporting large corporations who have signed up to these principles that we believe in and expect us to continue doing that. I think what's going to be interesting is to track the commitments that we made on the report. Some are due next year, others are due in 5 years' time, and others in between. And holistically, we hope that as a financial institution that has got financial muscle, and we're privileged to be in that position with all the humility, we continue to meet these standards and these commitments we've made publicly as we go.
Right. Now, going forward, we know this pandemic has presented a new normal across all sectors, especially African banks. They've been forced to navigate not only an economic recession, but we're seeing new disruptors in existing business models, in how traditional finance has operated. For example, we're seeing increased digitalization. As a key player in the sector, what's your take on the road ahead for financial institutions like Absa?
I think the immediate thing that financial institutions will have realized and financial institutions are doing is that they're part and parcel of the solutions out of the COVID crisis. Remember in 2008 global financial crisis, banks created the crisis, and therefore banks were not so much part of the solution to that crisis. Government stepped in and helped banks to recover. This time is a bit different. Banks are intact, they have solid capital positions, economies are challenged across the continent. We have to underwrite that recovery as financial institutions, and Absa is doing exactly that. We are open for business to make sure that finance is provided where it's needed most, and that businesses bounce back and nations bounce back, trade bounce back, inter-border and cross-border flows come back, and we support where we can to be part of this recovery. But I think it's also, as you say, it's also a time when banking is going through a significant structural transformation, and that's because of digital technology. You look at spaces like e-commerce. We've seen e-commerce growing fastest in the last 6 months than the last 10 years combined. So banks must adopt. Banks must continue to apply their capital and the expenses towards being digital at the core. Consumers today seek financial services, but they don't necessarily seek financial providers. And financial services can be easily duplicated, provided at speed through digital channels. So we're having this challenge of banks being called on to support the recovery from this environment we're in, but also banks themselves having the need to transform and investing to be attuned with digital transformation. And I think the key is not to leave anyone behind. There are consumers who will always want to visit a bank or want to interact with bankers one-on-one and face-to-face. And there are consumers who will always want to move into digital. So we must be careful not to leave anyone behind, not to go fully digital at the expense of those who are non-digital. And therefore, it's a keen balance we seek to achieve. But you're right, I think the transformation is going to create winners and losers. And certainly at Absa, we're investing significantly to be part of the winners out of this environment.
Quite right. Well, we do have to leave it there, but thank you, Mr. Muthui, for that interesting discussion. Of course, that was Moses Muthui. He is the Country Strategy Director for Absa Bank Kenya.